an R2R ladder DAC with a tube buffer stage with analog VU meters, everything at 349 freaking US dollars. 349 US dollars. FiiO, are you okay? Please blink twice if you are being held hostage by engineers.
Yeah.
Welcome back everyone, I'm Sando, and today I'm going to show you why this thing is the absolute best DAC that FiiO has ever produced, and hands down the best sub $500 US DAC that I've heard so far. Let's check it out. I have a lot of ground to cover today, but let's start it step by step, and let's begin with its looks and build quality. And if you have already watched my FiiO K15 or K17 videos, then this thing, the Warmer, yes, I'm not kidding, this is actually the product name. It's called Warmer R2R. It's an R2R ladder DAC, of course, and it uses absolutely the same case with the K15 and K17 units. It might look small, but it's built very solid. And since we have 4 vacuum tubes on top, as you can see, we have plenty of ventilation holes that will move the hot air outside this case. And after 8 hours of non-stop music playback, I measured the following temperatures. As you can see, the hottest spot just on top of the vacuum tubes is at around 55 degrees Celsius or around 131 degrees Fahrenheit, and to its sides it sits at around 50 to 52 degrees. While this is quite warm, it's nowhere near what I would describe as hot or untouchable. However, I do not recommend putting anything on top of this unit, and FiiO recommends the same thing. You can, however, use some footers in between it and your headphone amplifier, or better yet, you can use a small hi-fi rack that will block the heat output, entering the rest of your electronics. Moving on to controls, we have just a single on-off button right here, and a switch that lets you select a USB, coaxial or optical input, and that's pretty much it. Everything else you can find on its back, like the usual RCA and XLR analog outputs, and 2 tiny switches that lets you select a non-oversampling or oversampling working mode, as well as USB 1.0 or 2.0 operation. You should know that in USB 1.0 mode it works driverless, meaning that it will work instantly with your gaming console such as PS5 or Nintendo Switch, and of course it works as intended with your smartphone, with your tablet, so on and so forth. Before I discuss what's inside it, first of all, I want to discuss 4 things that you might dislike, 4 things that I personally adore on this thing. First of all, I want to say that we do not have Bluetooth on this thing, and I totally get it. It's quite convenient to use sometimes Bluetooth, but sadly Bluetooth is never bit perfect and it limits the sound quality compared to any other digital input, so I would never use Bluetooth, and we do not have Bluetooth on the Warmer. Secondly, we do not have a user interface on this one, so just plug in a digital cable, connect some interconnects on its back like RCA or XLR, and that's pretty much it. Just you, your music, a cozy sofa, some great sounding speakers or headphones, and some good vibes. That's all you need to enjoy some music. You do not need a complicated user interface. Thirdly, we do not have a digital volume attenuator, so you cannot control the volume on the Warmer. It constantly offers you a fixed voltage output of 1.8 volts via RCA and around 3.8 volts via XLR. And I know it can be a bad thing for some of you, but you should know that a digital attenuator is also removing some bits of information, so dynamic range is never really 22 or 24 bits, more like 80 bits, maybe 20, so the best volume control is no volume control at all for a purer and for a clearer sound, and that's what we have on the Warmer R2R. Lastly, we do not have an LCD display on this thing, which you might dislike, but we have this magical looking analog view meter with needles that are working in sync with your music, and I kid you not, it's just looking at those when the music is playing is simply mesmerizing. Ever since seeing them on my Trophomatic Primavera and being charmed by the movements of the needle in sync with my music, it's so refreshing seeing them again on a much more affordable unit. You can hate these 4 things that I just mentioned, but I love them because they mute my OCD. I'm no longer thinking about the best settings, user UI, the volume, the right volume, so on and so forth. I just relaxed my thoughts. I'm just listening to music, maybe air drumming to the rhythm of the music, looking at those view meters. That's all you need to know about this one. On the inside, things are incredibly simple on this thing, and believe me, this is a very good thing because a short signal path will always sound clearer, purer, and that's what we have on the Warmer. First of all, this is an R2R ladder DAC that uses 4 ladders for network of resistors, having 48 resistors per ladder, and since this is a fully balanced DAC, we have 4 ladders, so in total 192 high precision resistors with an accuracy of, I believe, 0.1%. This is basically the same configuration that we saw on the FiiO K13 R2R that I reviewed about 1 month ago. But instead of using op-amps or discrete components at the output stage, like most DACs use, we have 4 vacuum tubes at the output stage, and those are JJ Electronic ECC88 or E88CC, it's basically the same thing. These are not biased so aggressively, I believe, by 28 volt rails, and I believe we're getting in return around 10,000 hours of working time, which is great. These tubes are working at the output stage and they will have a tremendous impact on the sound, but more about that in a minute. Last but not least, everything is being powered by a custom 46 watt linear transformer. I believe we have 3 windings, 3 different voltages, so everything is being powered by this low noise linear transformer. This is everything you need to know about this one, so let's hit some eardrums and let's check its sound. So how does the FiiO Warmer R2R DAC sound? Well, as its name suggests, it sounds warmer. No surprises, sweeter and smoother compared to any other DAC that passed through my hands below 1 kilobuck, and that includes the latest FiiO releases such as K13 R2R, K15, K17. To be frank with you, this video should be live yesterday, but instead of editing and shooting some nice B-roll footage, I just sat there on that sofa and I listened to music for all day long. Just me, my music, my thoughts, and a very long playlist. As you already know, I'm juggling with all sorts of DACs for a while now, and I've tested, I believe, a good deal of R2R ladder DACs as well, from affordable to expensive to super mega expensive ones. And I'm still in love with my Rockna Wave Dream reference signature. I believe this is the best DAC that I have ever heard in my life. But you won't believe it, but this Rockna with the Warmer, they have a few things in common. And I know it's crazy comparing the Warmer with something that costs 17 times more. Yes, the Rockna is by 70 times more expensive than the Warmer, but why not? Let's do it. First of all, I'd say it that the Rockna is pretty much the most technical sounding DAC that I tried, and I believe it plays in a league of its own. What I mean by that is detail, retrieval, and resolution is simply unmatched. It sounds absolutely sublime. Also, transit response, dynamics, bassline, unmatched. It's simply the best in that regard. And when it comes to holography effects and 3D effects and Soundstage, again, it's simply outstanding. But there are 2 things that are in common with the Warmer, and let's talk about that. The Rockna and the Warmer have an identical tonal balance, so everything that has to do with bass, mid-range and treble is more or less the same on both units, and I'll have something interesting to say about Warmer's sound staging abilities in a little bit. The Warmer and the Rockna have a few things in common, as I've said already, and I believe that mid-range purity, mid-range bloom, warmth, and meat on the bone is pretty much the most similar things that you'll find between these two devices. If I move both of them to NOS mode or non-oversampling mode, then I simply cannot stop listening to music. I just close my eyes with a stupid smile on my face, and I want to relax and enjoy every moment in the company of my favorite artists. The mid-range presence is spooky real on the Warmer, and if you are listening to tons of vocal intensive tracks, then it almost feels like the musicians enter the room and are sitting nearby. It's not just about how real or lifelike they sound, but also the spatial cues that are rendered so incredible. If you are all about that bass, then you'll need to warm around 20 to 30 minutes for a full warm-up, as I believe it starts to be visceral and quite punchy sounding at the bass after half time of music playback. But if you just powered it on for the first time, then you should know that you need to put at least 50 hours of work on this one, because those vacuum tubes, they need cooling and heating hours to strengthen those anode and cathode elements, and you can do that only by doing some burning. And of course the rest of the electronics also need some runtime to sound at their best. So I believe after about 50 hours of burning, the bass starts to be quite playful, quite visceral. And yes, the bass lamp is definitely here on the Warmer, which I'm very fond of. Once you have at least 2 days of playtime on the Warmer, then expect the bass notes to pay you a visit, and instead of getting these ultra short bass notes and with no decay whatsoever like it happens with a lot of entry-level converters, I believe that we have a very different presentation on the Warmer. It's quite muscular, it's weighty, it has plenty of authority in the bass. Even the bass lamp will pay you a visit if the rest of your system is up to the snuff. I seriously think that these two regions, the bass and the mid-range, are the most impressive parts of the Warmer, and the treble is somewhat kind of soft, mellow, relaxed. It's not drawing your attention at all, but if you are a treble head and you want a little bit more contour in there, a tighter sound, and just move from non-oversampling to oversampling, and it will change its tonality quite a lot. The oversampling mode is tightening the sound, and the leading edge, the contour of the notes, is slightly sharper, and you can even hear some additional nuances somewhere in the upper treble, something that it's almost blurred in the non-oversampling mode. So we have two different sound profiles. You can choose non-oversampling if you want to hear the full magic of R2R DACs and vacuum tubes, getting one of the smoothest, sweetest, and warmest presentations I've heard around here, or choose oversampling mode if you want some of the sound tightness back, if you like to hear clearer leading edges and a somewhat more extended treble output. In my case, I used non-oversampling most of the time with my old jazz and blues that are somewhat smoky, unrefined, they have a little bit of noise, but I like hearing those imperfections. I believe it adds to the experience. And with modern music such as electronica, EDM, hip-hop, rock, metal, I used oversampling mode, which I believe needs to sound a little faster, punchier, a bit more sharp. That's what oversampling is offering to you. Except for getting a very similar lifelike presentation that I'm getting from my Rockna and having it on the Warmer, I was also surprised by its sound staging capabilities. It was definitely playing tricks with my imagination, and instead of throwing me a 2D or 2.5D, I was getting this full-blown 3D sound that I'm usually getting with some amazing R2R DACs. Now, if you watched this channel for a long time, then you know that from everything that I tried so far, I believe that R2R DACs are sounding the biggest and have the most impressive depth. And of course, you can go with entry-level, mid-level, and more expensive. All of them sound quite impressive in this regard, but the ones that have also a vacuum tube output stage, they will sound even bigger. And that is really the case with the Warmer. I believe from the DACs that I tried at my place, the Warmer is simply the most 3D sounding DAC I tried, up to 1 kilobuck. I simply cannot tell you one unit that is very similar in this regard. There are several that play pretty impressive in here, but very similar, I don't think I know any. R2R ladder DACs always sounded quite big and quite holographic, but this one is almost like transforms your regular stereo tunes into binaural recordings via headphones. And I know I've said this sentence before, I don't remember when, but this time around is truer than ever. Everything is just hovering all around my head, and everything is somewhere flying in this room via loudspeakers. The sound enters your space, and I mean, it really gets into the room, and it's not just getting closer, but also somewhat deeper too. It's a weird feeling, but that's exactly what a high-performance DAC should do. Play tricks with me, impressing not only with its lifelike tonality and timbre, but also with this out-of-head sound via headphones and holographic and grand via speakers. Comparing it with everything that I have on hand at a very similar price point is actually very similar. The Warmer R2R DAC will sound warmer, sweeter, juicier, meatier, I'd say, compared to FiiO K13 R2R, K15, K17, even Hyphaman Serenade Junior is not exactly as sweet and organic sounding like this one. The Serenade is slightly more transparent and there is more detail retrieval. And yes, you can hear that with some high-performance headphones. And of course, it can drive headphones. It has a pretty powerful headphone amplifier section. The K13 R2R also has a very good headphone amplifier. But if you care only for the musical enjoyment and you want just a DAC, nothing else, then I believe the Warmer R2R does it better. This guy wasn't made for purists that want the absolute last drop of information, because you will not get that with the Warmer R2R. Yes, I can hear a few nuances here and there, but it's not an absolute beast like the Rockna is in terms of resolution and transparency. It's good enough, but not outstanding. It will, however, impress a true music lover, a melomaniac, a CD, tape or vinyl collector who deeply cares about the act of music listening. In the end, I was deeply moved by its sound, but even more so by its price. To be frank, I know about this project for a while now. I've been discussing with FiiO about this one. I've seen the sketches, the PCB, the internal components, the ladder DACs, the linear transformer, the vacuum tubes, and I always thought that it should cost at around $1,000 or maybe a little bit more, but definitely not $350. I don't know how FiiO has done it, because in Europe or in USA it will cost at least 3 times to produce something similar. So yeah, we have one of the most affordable R2R DAC on the planet, but it looks terrific and sounds spectacular if you listen with your ears and not with an oscilloscope or audio analyzer. My respect for FiiO as a brand just skyrocketed, and I hope that this product will be a commercial success, because I want to see how much further they can push the envelope in terms of R2R DAC design. This video was so easy to do because music was directly speaking to me. This is fun in the purest form, and if this is what you are chasing for, get the Warmer and thank me later. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. Please smash that like button and consider subscribing if you found this really helpful, and I'll see you very soon with quite possibly one of the most advanced DACs that does so many new things. See you soon. Cheers.